Hi everyone, my name is Ksenia, and if you're here, you're probably interested in sustainability, zero waste, minimalism, and mental health. So today I wanted to get ready for Halloween and do my Halloween makeup and put on my Halloween costume, which you should try to guess in the end. And also chat about death. I made a video about death last year after I started actively watching YouTube channel Ask a Mortician, and later on this year I read a book by Caitlin, which is called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. It's her first book, and it's about her experience of working as a cremation operator in US. So I want to start doing my makeup and also chat about the book and what I learned from it. I want to start from the author's note by Caitlin, saying, "The fear of death is why we build cathedrals, have children, declare war, and watch cat videos online at 3 a.m. Death drives every creative and destructive impulse we have as human beings. The closer we come to understanding it, the closer we come to understanding ourselves." The inspiration I'm using is this. I do have this liquid lipstick, which I hope I can use as eyeshadow, and I also want to use maybe this red in this palette. Let me see if you can see. Oh my god, it's so dirty. This one. Yeah, let's give it a try. Oh my god, okay. I think I'm gonna use this mirror. It's very nice and big. As a person who has been struggling with understanding death and dealing with death, it has been a really great experience reading this book. Okay, back. So here's concealer as a primer. Actually, I want to show this brow tattoo gel. In the book, but also in some of her videos, Caitlin opens up about her first experience with death, which was watching a child fall off from big heights in a mall. She was a child herself back then, and it was a very traumatic experience. For me, it was having my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandfather die when I was 11 years old. So I think I was actually older than Caitlin, but I also didn't process it well. I spoke about this in my video from last year, so if you're interested, you can go and watch it. Caitlin talks about fear of death that she had, and she says, "Fearing death, I wanted to reclaim control over it. I figured it had to play favorites. I just needed to make sure I was one of those favorites. To limit my anxiety, I developed a whole bouquet of obsessive-compulsive behaviors and rituals. My parents could die at any moment. I could die at any moment. It was my job to do everything right. Counting, tapping, touching, checking, to regain balance in the universe and avoid further death." I quite relate to this, not in the terms of OCD symptoms, but in terms of trying to regain control, because I think OCD is definitely gives you a feeling of control, and since death is the ultimate lack of control, the more you try to control other things, the more you feel like you are actually in control. I started fearing death after my personal death, after an accident, and I kept thinking about it every single day, you know, going through things or cycling or something, you know, doing chores and thinking, I can die, people around me can die. Yeah, not a very nice way to live, to be honest, especially when you're in your early 20s. Fear of death has been divided into several topics, so to say. So some people are afraid of dying because first, their death could cause grief to relatives and friends. Second, all your plans and projects would come to an end. Third, the process of dying might be painful. Fourth, they could no longer have experience. 5, they would no longer be able to care for their dependents. 6, they are afraid of what might happen if there is life after death, and they are afraid of what may happen to their body after death. So for me, I definitely have the most one would be number 4, for me no longer having experiences, because I feel like I'm always waiting for life to begin, so I have some kind of delayed life syndrome, and that's why the thought of my life ending is extremely sad for me, and that's why going out there and doing stuff and starting my own YouTube channel is a solution, because it's experiencing life in many of its ways for me. Another big topic that Caitlin talks about is the way we are not seeing dead bodies anymore, and I think it's definitely probably more accurate to her culture rather than mine, although it's hard to say that I am significantly close to my culture. But at least when I experienced the funerals in Russia, they were in rural area where you keep your body, keep the dead body at home, care for it yourself. Maybe in a way, having dead body near you is not supposed to be comforting. It starts to deteriorate, and you know, the person doesn't look like themselves anymore, and that's part of the grief process that you have to go through, because you clearly see that this person, like this shell of a person, is not them anymore, because they are not alive, because something left them, and it's either, you know, just their personality being present or their soul, whatever you believe in. But that definitely changes body, you know, the face features and the way the body looks like as well. But for those who were deprived of experience of seeing a dead body, or at least spending a long time with them, it could be like having a desensitized feeling of death, not having experience with death at all, and not understanding how even the experience of dying will affect you and your loved ones. On TikTok, I've seen some deaf care people who work in the hospice, so they see dying people daily, and they talk about similar behaviors that all the dying people have, and how normal it should be, and how it's not normalized in our culture, especially probably American culture, you know, North American culture, that a lot of people keep their relatives on life support, you know, long-suffering elderly people on life support, prolonging their suffering, because they cannot let go, or because for example, these people deciding to have this life support and resuscitation policy because they are scared of dying. I had actually in the past years experiences with more death, and one of them was a death of an elderly person, and this is actually a definition of a good death for me, because what she decided to do is she basically actively decided to stop living. She was 82 years old, and all of her relatives, all of her friends and family died already, and she has been in pain for a while. She has been living alone, actually, was quite mobile still, but she was depressed. And if you're depressed, it's also she had back problems, and then at some point she got to the hospital for her back, and she refused all treatment, and she said, I am done, I want to die. And she stopped eating, and she went to hospice to be taken care of until she dies. It took her 2 months to die, I think, after she stopped eating, because this is how strong our bodies actually are. And she saw all of her relatives, she said goodbye, left, so she stayed sane until the very last moment, which is a luxury, which I hope I can get as well. She made her testament, got all affairs in orders, and then ultimately died. It sounds very empowering to me, and it's exactly the opposite of what we usually get from death. And that's a definition of good death for me. Here's what Caitlin says about it. This is what Caitlin writes. For me, the good death includes being prepared to die with my affairs in order, the good and bad messages delivered that need delivering. The good death means dying while I still have my mind sharp and aware. It also means dying without having to endure large amounts of suffering and pain. The good death means accepting death as inevitable and not fighting it when the time comes. This is my good death, but as legendary psychotherapist Carl Jung said, it won't help to hear what I think about death. Your relationship to mortality is your own. In addition to talking about death and elderly people, we have to talk about the cult of youth that we have in our society. Recently, there was some kind of backlash with the pictures of Emma Watson. Apparently, she looked her age. We're the same age, by the way, we're both 30. And so basically some people were saying that she doesn't look good and doesn't look young enough, comparing to, celebrities who are older than her and look much better. Well, first of all, people don't owe you anything in terms of how they look. If you don't like the way they look, just don't look at them, was what I'm saying. But also, we want our celebrities, but also want ourselves to look, to have good aging, and we should accept aging. And the longer we live, our generation is going to probably live much longer than the one we have now. For example, in the Netherlands, average life expectancy is 80 plus years old, and it's probably going to get longer and higher for people. What Caitlin is also talking about in her book, we are having more and more older generation, while we don't have that many caring personnel to take care of our elderly. And also, by denying ourselves the opportunity to age and die, we also destroy the future for ourselves when we will be older. We do not and will not have the resources to properly care for our increasing elderly population. Yet we insist on medical intervention to keep them alive, to allow them to die would signal the failure of our supposedly infallible modern medical system. And last but definitely not the least point that I wanted to make today is about sustainable death industry at the moment. What I liked in Caitlin's book is that putting bodies to rest actually offers a lot of opportunities for sustainability. She talks about a place that used energy produced by crematoriums to power the city which was nearby. Rather than let author and environmentalist Edward Abbey be buried in a traditional cemetery, his friends stole his body, wrapped it in a sleeping bag, and hauled it in the back of his pickup truck to the Cabeza Prieta desert in Arizona. They drove down a long dirt road and dug a hole when they reached the end of it, marking Abbey's name on a nearby stone and pouring whiskey onto the grave. Fitting tribute for Abbey, who spent his career warning humanity of the harm in separating ourselves from nature. If my decomposing carcass helps nourish the roots of a juniper tree or the wings of the vulture, that is immortality enough for me, and as much as anyone deserves, he once said. There are facilities legalized in the US, and I'm pretty sure there are some things in Europe as well, and of course in non-Western cultures. More sustainable way to put a body to rest is much more available than in our cultures. For example, building a funeral pyre, or leaving a person to be eaten by animals, or burying a person just in a shroud. Human composting or water cremation are much more sustainable options than the ones that we usually use. For example, why is cremation okay, or burial is okay and composting is not okay? Why is one decent and another is considered too barbaric? I'm not bashing one practice or another. I'm just saying that if we acknowledge the fact that we're all going to die and stop being afraid of it, we can actually come up with much more interesting solutions, and also making them maybe more sustainable or more beneficial for the family in terms of processing their grief and so on. Here is my costume. Can you guess who I am? I'm a Red Riding Hood. I wanted to curl my hair, but I'm really, really bad at that, so sorry about this. This is a completely thrifted outfit. I got this one a year ago for my witch costume for last year, and this one I got this year from Vinted. What do you think? Oh, I think I even have a basket. Hold on. There it is. I have been watching Cosbrarian on TikTok a lot, and she makes TikToks about fairy tales, and I got really inspired. You can probably tell that I really have a thing for smart brunettes with low voice, like Caitlin Doughty, Liz Cosbrarian, Sophia Nygaard, and Daria. Tell me in the comments what your costume is this year, if you're celebrating Halloween. As all YouTubers and vloggers are supposed to say, please subscribe and like this video. Have a spooky holiday.